Welcome to ITOM Spotlight. Today we have Mohnissh and Idhrees with us. Hi Mohnissh. Hi man.
Hi Vishnu.
So can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so Idhrees and I are actually from a company in Sri Lanka called SafeEngine, and we're actually the sole distributor for ManageEngine in Sri Lanka. So Idhrees is actually one of our sales executives, and I am on the technical side. I'm a systems engineer.
Hi, yeah. So like Mohnissh mentioned, we're from SafeEngine. I look over the sales part of things for the whole ManageEngine suite of products, and Mohnissh, of course, looking over the technical part. Again,
The pre-sales, POCs, implementations, and so forth.
Post-sales support, everything included.
Nice. So let's get into the topic for today.
Yes.
So we'll start with the state of ITOM in 2025. So in Sri Lanka, we see Sri Lanka as a growing market for ITOM. So what is the state of ITOM in Sri Lanka? How was it in 2022, 2023, and how has it grown in 2025?
So, I mean, if you look from the requirement side on the technical side of things, we can actually see ITOM is it's essential to any enterprise. You invest so much on your network, your applications, your servers, and you absolutely need to monitor it. So actually, when it comes to the ITOM market in Sri Lanka, it's just a case of we see the requirement is there. It's just about us going against competitors and actually putting our product in place. So in terms of the market, it's growing as organizations grow, their ITOM requirements grow as well.
Yeah, to add to what Mohnissh said, the overall requirement for ITOM is growing a lot, and compared to 2022 and pre-COVID, the requirement for having an actual IT operations management system has spiked a lot, not just in the private sector, but actually moving into 2024 from 2023, I've seen a massive growth in the requirement for ITOM in the public sector as well, where now even people who invest a lot of money into the IT infrastructure in public sector and even in the private sector now actually want to know what's happening with their servers. They are actually more keen on and more interested in knowing what's happening with all their money that they're investing in. How is the project going on? And the management is actually getting a bit more involved with the projects and with IT projects in general. And when it comes to something like ITOM, from what I have experienced in the last year, taking 2024 as a whole, the management actually is now quite interested in IT operations as a whole because they want to know about the hundreds and thousands of dollars that they've invested into the IT infrastructure, and they want to know if everything's working properly and if everything's working correctly. And the requirement for ITOM is also growing much more now because people are looking for a forecasting tool so that they can, forecast when their current IT infrastructure is running, servers and all running out of storage, or if the RAM is getting utilized to the maximum, if they need to upgrade. So from that side as well, the requirement for ITOM is increasing quite a bit.
Right. So the trend in 2024 was most organizations were adopting digital transformation. So what's the state of digital transformation in Sri Lanka right now? Are organizations adopting it, or organization already adopted it? So what's the state of
So definitely, so when it comes to it, it actually depends on the sector. So what we're seeing is, okay, so a lot of the enterprise sector, the bigger organizations, they've already had that digital transformation happen over the last 10 or so years, right? So that was already in place. But now we actually see a growth in that digital transformation in the SMB and so middle-sized business industry. So we see food manufacturing companies and so on that are actually now starting to get into ITOM because now they have started their digital transformation. So they've invested more, so now they're getting into ITOM as well, right? And along with that, actually, if you take Sri Lankan market, we have, especially when it comes to network and applications, we have a lot of vendors in the market. So one requirement we see a lot is actually, okay, we purchased these products from the different vendors. We need a single console to manage them from. So that's what we generally see now in terms of that digital transformation trend.
Okay. So when you talk about digital transformation, the conversation eventually shifts towards FSO, full stack observability.
Right.
So what's the state of full stack observability? Are people aware that you have to observe your environment, or full stack observability is still a buzzword there? What's the...
People are fully aware. I would say it is a case of the technical guys are aware, the men on the ground, the administrators, they know exactly what they need, but it's their job and ours to help them convince their management why they need to invest money into it. I think that's where it is.
So you say that full stack observability is a concept that is already adopted by organizations.
It's a concept they want to adopt.
It's something that they know they need, but they're unable to do it to the level that it needs to be at. So they're unable to, so most of the organizations find it hard to convince their management that they actually need this because the management's not seeing a direct ROI from the item. They're unable to see it. So we generally help them show that ROI to their management, because when it goes as a network monitoring solution, and let's say they have invested a couple of $100,000 on a server, and you tell them that they want something to monitor those servers, they just see it as another cost. They don't see a direct ROI from it, unlike having a data center or a server. So what we do is we basically help our customers along with them, sit down with them and help them show that ROI to their management. So there is an ROI, but unfortunately the IT people see the ROI, but the management's unable to see the ROI.
Okay. So while adopting FSO or while adopting digital transformation, what do you think is the biggest challenge that organizations face?
I think that actually takes us right back, because I think the biggest challenge they face is the actual observability. Because they'll do the digital transformation and then have no visibility on what they've. So I think that's actually like the biggest gap that we see, is that with digital transformation is actually observing what you've transformed, observing how everything's running, and observing how you're going to expand. Because digital transformation technically never stops, right? You're constantly sort of either developing or improving or moving forward with the technology, right? So it's always important to have that observability, and that's genuinely a gap that we tend to see. Because sometimes it's case of we see, especially the large enterprise customers, they don't even know how many devices they've purchased at this point. If you just take like the network devices, the admins won't have a total idea what their total count is, and there might be switchers running that were that are over 10 years old, and they don't have that visibility. And I think that's the big gap that I see in that space.
Okay, so infrastructure visibility, you say, is the biggest challenge while adopting digital transformation.
Correct. You can't see, number one, they struggle to see the existing infrastructure, and now when they implement new, again, they struggle to see, right? So sometimes they don't actually have an idea of how many devices they have at all.
Yeah, to what he said, sometimes they have multiple devices of multiple different age gaps, and the only time they realize that a device is broken or something is when something goes wrong, because they have no visibility on the device, like to what Mohnissh said. So unless otherwise something goes wrong, they never really go and see, okay, this device is 10 years old, it needs to be changed. They don't really go and do that. So they don't have any sort of method of tracking what their current network assets are, or how old the switches are, or how old the access points are. So that visibility is not there for them at the moment.
So let's talk a little bit about the national digital economy strategy that Sri Lankan government has introduced. So do you have something to say about it, and how do you think it is going to help observability or digital transformation or any new technology emerge in the Sri Lankan market?
So, I mean, I'm sure you guys are aware. So Sri Lanka has faced its set of challenges over the last few years. So there's been downsides, there's been upsides. So downside is a lot of companies, as even government institutes, are kind of tightening their budgets. So observability isn't necessarily the highest point on the priority list. So that is an issue. But there's also an upside, because we've been working with organizations like the IMF, and they've put certain compliance policies in place, and observability and digital transformation are key parts of those particular policies. So that is a benefit we see. So we actually see a growth in that market for that reason, because now all our various clients actually putting in solutions because they have to for their compliance. So we see that as a good benefit. But we do see a downside to that, unfortunately, is that we see that some customers are getting it just for the sake of having the compliance. So we see that they're not fully utilizing it. And as engineers, we actually want them to implement a solution, not just for the sale, right? We want them to fully utilize. So actually now we are trying to get customers to utilize their observability more, utilize their digital transformation more, and not just for the sake of compliance. I think that's kind of where the Sri Lankan market is. But I think that compliance is actually a great benefit in terms of digital transformation. It's really pushing organizations forward.
Nice. So when the last time we met, we spoke something about compliance, banking compliance, etc. The government introducing some compliance standards for the organizations and banking organizations in Sri Lanka. Can you tell us more about that?
Correct. So, like one rule that the central bank put out was all banks have to be ISO 27000 certified by the end of it was actually supposed to be the end of 2024, but they've given time till 2025, and they basically put dates on where they need to have these certain solutions or certain compliance standards implemented. So it's quite interesting that way. We see the compliance really growing, but we also see, because the compliance is growing, we also see our customers' knowledge growing. Because they are forced to comply, they actually understand what their weaknesses were before, right? So, and it's actually making it a little easier for us to serve, because observability especially in the year of digital transformation, is actually very hard to market on its own. But once a customer sees what information they didn't have before, then they're with it. So then for us to go ahead and actually tell them, you can actually, add on these monitors, look at these details as well, that actually moving forward and increasing that observability becomes easier for us to push towards the customer.
Nice. So we spoke about digital transformation. We spoke about full stack observability. Eventually, the next question is about AI. So how is AI adoption? AI with FSO, how are organizations taking that?
So when it comes to AI with FSO, I think it's still actually, right now, it's still a buzzword. It's still a buzzword. People aren't aware of, okay, what can AI do in the observability space? They're like, okay, we need some AI there. But right now, we want customers to think about what they actually want from the AI. You can't just say AI will do something, right? You have to say, I want to be able to generate better reports through AI, right? We'll see where AI can actually help us with observability rather than throwing that word around right now. So we actually see a lot of people, even competitors, just throwing that word meaninglessly. And then when asked questions, there's no answer to what the AI does. You can give it prompts and it'll generate a report. But I think AI should be a bit deeper than that in the observability space.
So I think we should educate our customers more on what exactly AI does.
Correct.
This throughout that word.
Yes, exactly. We have to help the customer understand that it's not just about having AI. It's about utilizing it, knowing where to have it, where it might actually be a security risk to have it, and know where it needs to be implemented and where it can actually be a benefit to the organization.
This actually brings us back to one of the previous points you mentioned as well, where people buy certain products just to have it for a compliance regulation, or just because the management tells them you need to have an AI in place, where we see customers buying products and not really even using it. We've had instances where customers have bought products and not even fully implemented it over a year because they just bought it to use a specific feature. Even though they have other things in it, they don't want to use it. They just bought it either to get complied with ISO 27001 standards, or they bought it just to show the management that we have a network monitoring solution. Okay. So there are instances like that as well. So same thing would apply to AI as well, where customers, in some cases, not everyone, but certain customers would buy AI just to say, okay, we have an AI, but even they don't actually know why they need the AI. So they don't really end up using the AI for what it's meant to be used for and what it can do. So just have it doing a very basic thing.
And along with that, they're just asking for AI because it's a buzzword. They aren't really looking at what they need it to do or what it can benefit them. It's like, when they look at products, sometimes customer will ask you, we'll do the demo, we do the presentation. The customer's like, okay, so where's the AI in this? And we're like, what do you need the AI to do? That's the question. I was like,
an answer for that.
They don't have an answer for that. There's no, but all these other products have AI, but what do you need it to actually do? And then once they give us an answer, then I actually like to go and explain what we can do in terms of AI.
Then we already discussed about the budget constraints that's going on in Sri Lanka right now, about organizations and the government being stringent about the budget. So what is your advice towards SMBs that are going to invest in an IT operations management or an FSO solution?
Okay, so we work with a lot of SMBs who, of course, now moving into the full FSO space. So basically, what we advise them is, you currently have spent X amount of money on your current IT infrastructure. Some of these companies don't work on weekends, but these IT people don't work on weekends, but they need their system to be up on weekends, right? The system goes down. They are unaware of what has happened. They may be out of family, they might be doing some personal work. Until otherwise customers complain, or the people using their websites complain to them, they don't know anything, what has happened to the on-premise infrastructure which they have spent so much amount of money on. Because anything could go wrong at any time. And it's a weekend, no one's at office, but people are trying to use your platform are facing an issue. So until otherwise, it could be a number of hours, it could be a day, it could be even longer if no one contacts you and tells you that, your website is down. The IT person is never going to know. So that's the sort of conversation we try to take with customers, to explain to them that you've invested so much on your infrastructure. Why not put a little more to know the moment something goes down? Why wouldn't you want to get a letter that this is going down? So you can, if you're not able to make it, you can tell someone else is down, or you can put out a post saying that, sorry, our website is down. It's not working during this time, because people who want to use your website, when they go, it's not working down, people lose confidence, right? And that's just for people who put their website out to other people. But for people who are using critical servers and critical IT infrastructure, the moment it goes down, there is a massive time gap between the people who try to access it, the specific server, and he has to then call the IT person, and the IT person might not answer. They're on weekend, they might be doing something else. So there's a time gap between them calling and escalating. So that again would be a loss for the company, because this person who is accessing this server on a weekend for some work could be urgent. It could be, so generally when you do, it's quite urgent work, right? So that time gap, one thing is the company is losing money on the time gap, and the other thing is he's unable to get his work done. And also another thing is, if you are giving that service out to customers, they are unable to purchase. In turn, the company is actually losing money by not having the visibility on the infrastructure. So that time gap can be minimized. You can't make it 0%, of course, but can be minimized with an FSO, because the moment something goes down, they can be alerted saying that, this has gone down. So there is no time gap of someone logging in and then calling him and, him announcing or whatever, because it will alert the admin saying, this is down. So you're actually investing, but you're also saving money because you're saving time. So in that way, customers actually, once you actually take that conversation with them, they are much more convinced with what they're buying, because they are okay once they understand and take it in on why you actually need an FSO. That's when they come to us and say, okay, we're happy with this, we want to take this to our management. So what we find is we have to educate them on why do you actually need the FSO.
We see a lot of emerging trends like cloud adoption, quantum computing, etc., etc., etc. So how do SMBs or enterprises prioritize what they need?
Okay, so the first thing any organization looks at is, of course, the critical infrastructure, that's being the data centers and everything included with that, from switches to access points. But they also prioritized the FSO to a certain extent, like I mentioned previously, once they understand why they need an FSO. So once they really understand why they need an FSO and what it can give them in return, that's when they sort of start to prioritize it a bit more. So when it comes to actual infrastructure, number one, of course, goes as the data centers and whatnot. Number two goes on the applications that they'll be running. Number three, security. And number four would be the FSO on to have, basically total visibility on this whole thing.
So I actually, when it comes to observability, I actually like to look at it as not necessarily one of those new technologies that's kind of coming into place, but it's something that an organization will need to know what they need to invest in, right? Because so usually how I see the trend is they'll invest in their operations side, then they'll invest in their observability, and with that observability, that actually allows them to reinvest or invest smarter, right? Because once you know your actual infrastructure, do you know, okay, what else do I need to invest in, right? Where else? Okay, I'm investing here, but this is through the observability, they can figure out where the actual ROI is coming from, right? So they can then know where they need to invest in going forward, right? So I think observability kind of goes hand in hand with that moving forward and actually moving into new solutions. I think observability is actually a necessity to actually do that correctly. Because we see, with, whether it's server management, knowing when a server is actually finally going to reach utilization. I will just take a web server, right? A web server it has a lifetime and it has utilization. As an organization grows, the utilization on that web server is just going to increase and increase and increase, right? But with observability, they actually know how much it's going to increase, and they can do their future planning through observability. So I like to look at it as to look at your investments, you actually need that observability rather than it being a part of the investment itself. It's more a tool to help you figure out what you should be looking into, where your money should be going, what actually needs attention. Right? I think that's really where full stack observability comes into place.
That's an excellent statement. Full stack observability is a necessity now to all organizations who are coming into the solutions monitoring phase, the ITOM monitoring phase. That was your statement. Right?
Yeah. So they need that observation to invest in anything. It's not just the ITOM that they're investing. They need that visibility to invest in anything IT related. Because how do you invest in something you don't know what you're doing in, right? How can I tell my management, hey, I need this many servers, if I can't even tell my management how little, how much I'm utilizing my servers now, I need to be able to justify that, right? And so what comes in there? Observability. So I think that's where observability really goes hand in hand with the customer's ability to invest in their own IT infrastructure.
Yeah, so that also goes back to what they prioritize first. So if we take it,
Yeah, it's about observability, but it should be.
yeah, it should be. So when you ask me about prioritization, I said what they generally do prioritize in Sri Lanka. They don't understand where they need to prioritize observability at. But once they do understand, that's when they actually prioritize, and going back to what you said, that's when they actually see, why they actually need it. But unfortunately, they are not.
But I mean that's where our job comes in. It's actually to demonstrate to them and teach them how investing in your full stack observability can actually help you manage your costing for the rest of your investments, because that's very important. And in an environment where companies are struggling, where they're trying to minimize cost, having that full stack visibility is the first step to minimizing that.
First FSO and then next.
I think it should be the case. I think while you're implementing solutions, you should be able to observe those solutions. You shouldn't have implemented the solution and then I need to observe this. It shouldn't be that way, right? It should be hand in hand. Yeah, I think it's a complement. It's a complementary to all your other IT investments is how I measure.
Should go in hand for the purchasing. So of course, having your base infrastructure is the first priority, but the second, with whatever you're buying, be it an antivirus, be it a firewall, be it another separate application, should go in hand on with an FSO, so that you actually know what your actual utilization is, and if it's not going to be enough, or if it's going to be too much, or whatnot.
Nice. So I think we'll wrap up. That was an excellent session. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Vishnu, so much. And
All right.
again.
Definitely.